scholars, educators. It's been my honor and pleasure to be here today speaking to you, alhamdulillah, in this place of Karbala, alhamdulillah. Again, this presentation has been collaborated with two schools, Hadi School of Excellence as well as our Hadi School of Accredited Learning. Unfortunately, Shahid Khan, who was supposed to be presenting with me, is not here. But inshallah, we want to try our best to present. This presentation is about the Leader in Me program. A Leader in Me program is a school-wide transformational model that is research-based to help our students to reach full potential using the leadership skills, alhamdulillah. And we started this program about 12 years ago, and this is based on a book that's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey, and I know most of you, I see heads nodding that you've probably read this book. Most of this information is usually shared by salesmen or older individuals, adults, but programs started a couple of years ago where we thought that these habits could be shared with young students, young ones that could help them reach their potential. Why wait till they become older? So this program, or this few minutes I have with you, the actual presentation is really a 3-day program presentation, professional development that is given to the teachers, and we have a group study guide. So there's a lot of things that happen. So I'm going to really go quick with the different habits that I would like to share with you. I want to quickly talk about the non-cognitive skills, the overview of the 7 habits, and the integration in Islamic view. And that is why this program is so alhamdulillah beneficial for us, because it's so ingrained and it's so rooted in the Islamic worldview, and Ahl Bayt and family are already following these habits. But Stephen Covey is just using these universal principles to really organize in a sequential framework that helps and breaks down for the students of how to really follow the way of our Ahl Bayt. So now, alhamdulillah, as Islamic school, we want our students to be successful in their life, in their world of work and education, in dunya and in hereafter. Our mission and vision is to include, their academic excellence in an Islamic environment, and really follow the mission and vision that allows the students to be, contributing members of the society. And we want them to be college and career ready. So there's so many areas we want our students as an Islamic school to reach that full potential. So, so let's look at the research that has been done just last year, a couple of days ago last year, about the National Association of College and Employers. One of the top 5 attributes the employers are seeking for candidates. And if you really look at it, those are the problem, it's very blurry, but it's problem-solving skills, able to work in teams, strong work ethics, analytical skills, and communication skills. So these are the top 5, attributes that the employers are really looking for in their resumes. And if you really look at it, the other research shows that only 48.6% of the graduates are actually proficient in these skills, at least in the US. This study was done in the US. And we have a lot of work to do. Inshallah, we are one of those who are actually providing those skills to our students. But as Maulana Muhammad Razvi said in his beginning speech last night, or yesterday, that we cannot be the substandard school, right? We need to be on the cutting edge of education and standard. So what are those skills? What are we talking about here when we say that only So these are the skills that we're really needing to follow. And I want to show you this other slide that kind of proves further my point. And if you look at this slide, it talks about the same National Association of College Employers. And in this slide, it shows the percentage of individuals, the employers, who are looking, screening using the GPA, which is grade point average, as their method of screening and hiring employees. So this shows that in 2014 to 15, only 68% were screening the grade point average, and versus 2022 to 23, only 37% are the ones who are looking for as grade point average as their main screening for employment. There's a steep decline, as you can notice, in those individuals. So what are those skills? Why are GPA not that important right now? Meaning, factual knowledge that we have. If we pick up a phone or pick up a device, we're able to Google anything, everything, right? So what's the difference? It's how are the students are able to utilize that same knowledge, be able to, synthesize it, analyze it, optimize it, and use it to best of their knowledge. And that is what we're really looking for. That is what the employers are really looking for. And those are those non-cognitive skills. So non-cognitive skills are those skills that we want our students to have and be able to do. When you look at this slide, you're able to find that there are not these 16 non-cognitive skills that are predictor of success using a large body of evidence that shows that having these skills are important. And if you notice that the test scores and standardized tests are not the main giveaway, there are more things that needs to be looking at. And we also find, using this research by Brooklyn Stanford, that there is a chronology and a building block that allows the students to be successful. So foundational skills that we're talking about, the attachment, stress management, and the self-regulation, are those crucial skills that can be obtained by having those reciprocal, intentional relationship with the parents. Those are foundational skills that can be only obtained when the students are young, when they are, when their brains are malleable and their neuroplasticity is really high, and that could happen when they're young with the parents. So that will allow them to be ready for school, the benchmarking for schools, and early learning. That gives way and a prerequisite to the higher learning skills. And that goes with growth mindset, self-efficacy, resilience, and again, give way to self-directions. And that helps the students navigate the world around with purpose and direction. So what are those not? So these are we're talking about as non-cognitive skills. Now let's talk about how do we instill these skills in our students, right? What do we do to make sure that those students are achieving these skills, these competencies? And if you look at it, that habits are essential for the learning of complex skills, and are essential for learning and performing, and these complex skills because they enable us to perform the particular aspect of the skill automatically. So just like muscle memory, right? If we need our students to instill these skills in them, they need to be able to practice them. There's deliberate practice that they need it. It's like muscle memory. It's like muscles. So if you want to, have muscles and endurance, you go to the gym. And if you go to the gym once or twice, what are the results you're going to get? Not much. You need to be able to be persistent on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. They need to be able to do that deliberate practice and develop that habit in order for them to develop those competencies and those skills, inshallah. I love the quote. It says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." And so what we sow, we will sow a thought and reap an action, all the way up to sow a character, reap a destiny. So how do we get to that point? Now, before I move on to quickly go over, inshallah, I'm trying to do my best to quickly go over the 7 habits, but I do want us to talk about and look at this picture and have a little exercise with you all. I want you to look at this picture and I want you to tell me what you see here. And this is actually a practice that was done in Harvard Business School for a few years ago to just understand the process of paradigm. So if you can raise your hand and just tell me what you see, I'll give you one hint. It is a picture of a lady. So tell me how old, yes?
I see the lady.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me how old is this lady?
She looks young. Yeah.
Okay. So allow 20?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? What do you see?
An old lady.
You see an old lady. Okay. Well, we're looking at the same picture. And I'm going to talk to this gentleman and please prove your point as to why do you see an old lady? And brother, please tell her why do you see a young lady there?
Clear as day.
Oh, it's a clear as day, mashallah. And you can say the same. Clear as day for you? Wow. We are looking at the same picture, but we are able to come to 2 different conclusions. Now, I want you to look at just one more time, putting your eyes away. Come back to it. So, I'm going to tell you a secret. Both of them are right. You're looking at the same picture, but you are really looking at a drawing of a lady. So if you look at the young lady's neck, that's an old lady's mouth.
Now
I see what happened. That's what we call the switch. So you're able to see that? Okay. So for you gentlemen, the young lady's cheek is the nose of the old lady. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Now I see the old lady. I see the old lady.
Alhamdulillah. You can't see. So the nose is the old lady's nose, the cheek of the young lady. And the mouth, the neck of the young lady is the mouth of the old lady.
Yeah.
You see it? Okay. Alhamdulillah. So, mashallah. So, that's exactly what I wanted to get at. When? Yeah, so it's what you all just experienced is what we call a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift because you are able to see something and you're darn right about it. I know that that's what I saw, but then you are able to see something different. So what we just experienced is something that we need to understand, that when we see something, we are seeing it from our own autobiography, our own experiences, our perception. How we're looking at it is not what it actually is, right? We are only looking at through what we experience as depending on how you were raised or what kind of social environment you have, what influences you have in your lives, and all of that has worked slightly, has impacted you, and that's why we're able to see things differently. So if we are able to examine our paradigm, we are more able to, think about and interpret ourselves and our experiences, and we are able to see that we could be wrong, that we can accept other people's thought and their paradigm, and that will open up our eyes and our direction. Alhamdulillah. So I want to do one more exercise with you, and we'll move on to the habit, which is right there. But before I do that, I want you to please experience with me one more time that you are right now sitting and you are, just think about you looking at yourself from a corner of a room. Just whatever corner you like to choose, top of the corner of the room, and you're looking at yourself. It's like a third person, like a video. For example, I'm sitting here and I am looking at myself from this corner here as a third person. the way I'm sitting, the way I'm feeling. Are you able to experience that? Are you able to do that?
Yeah.
Please raise your hand if you are. Okay, very good. What you just experienced is what we call self-awareness. And I know the presentation, we have talked about that, but I just want to get you feel what is self-awareness. It is the ability to see ourselves. That is unique to humans only. As Ashraf al-Makhluqat, we are able to do that. If we are able to examine ourselves differently, then we are human beings, and we're now able to even work on ourselves because now we're able to examine ourselves, right? Because when we realized that when we're examining ourselves, sometimes we see ourselves with how others people see us, like a social mirror, meaning how does my parents see us? How does my spouse see us? How does my boss see us? So we kind of see ourselves sometimes based on them, and that view kind of gets distorted. It's like a carnival, mirror, where it's all distorted. So we need to see ourselves by our own paradigm. We need to examine ourselves differently, because again, language is also important. And if if you don't examine ourselves, we might have language that's called, I can't help myself, or why does it always happen to me? There's nothing I can do. So sometimes we become a victim to our circumstances, and we kind of rely on the stimulus, the other people's view, and we feel like we're victim. But we need to get out of that. We need to understand that we can think and feel differently because we have the freedom to choose. We have the free will, alhamdulillah, right? So again, this is all something that we teach our children. So I'm just kind of showing you that. We need to understand that there is a stimulus and a response. And stimulus and response is actually a program, or the way to support Edward Thornhill, who had discovered that, or suggested that in 1905. But there is a stimulus, there's a response to it, meaning that when something happens to us, we are feeling victim, not necessarily. What happens to us is not in our hand, but how we responded is in our control. And that's what we need to feel and imagine and understand, that there could be a space between when something happened to us, we respond, but let's pause. Let's wait and decide what we should say and do, because with our response is our destiny. When we respond, that is where our destiny is. There's so many examples of this Islamic point of view that we give our students. We talked about Prophet Yusuf's story, where he was thrown in the well, where he was also in the prison, and we were talking about the circle of control. Prophet Yusuf, at that time when he was in the prison, did not have much control of the environment, aside from what he could control, which is the prisoners who were around him, right? He was able to influence them. So we have what we call a circle of control. And we need to look at ourselves and say, okay, what is in my circle of control? Let's worry about what is in our control and not what's outside our control. And we have, young kids who worry about, oh my God, I'm not that high, my height is not that high, or my eyes are not blue, or my color. That is not in your control. Let's look at what is in your control. They worry about how other people's feeling or other people's behavior. But we need to worry about ourselves. How are we behaving? And how are we feeling? And what is our response? So, and also and we need to be proactive, which means that we need to, I'm sorry if I had covered everything, which is right here. So, alhamdulillah. So we need to be proactive. Once we decide that it is up to us, then we need to choose our response, our own script, and we need to, create our crisis management. We need to be able to write our own scripts. Sister, you raised your hand?
Yes, sorry. I wanted just to add, to what you said, that how the self-awareness is important. As Amir al-Mu'minin says that Man arafa nafsah faqad arafa rabbah. And it's very important. If I know myself and if I have the self-awareness, then I can know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then in dua al-faraj, we say, Allahumma arrafni nafsak. فإنك إن لم تعرفني نفسك لم أعرف رسولك. اللهم عرفني رسولك فإنك إن لم تعرفني رسولك لم أعرف حجتك. اللهم عرفني حجتك فإنك إن لم تعرفني حجتك ضللت عن ديني. It seems that the self-awareness is fundamental for all those.
MashaAllah. And that's what the beauty of this program that we're following, because it's really an inside-out approach. It's really first work on yourself and then move on to others. So, alhamdulillah, thank you so much. That is absolutely right. It's in Al-Mizan Hikmah, the quote that I was going to talk about, but mashallah, you have already said it. Make my life easy, alhamdulillah. So moving on to the next habit, which is beginning with the end in mind. So beginning with the end in mind talks about that anything that is created twice. So there's things that everything is created twice. So for example, let's think about a construction. When you're constructing something, constructing a building, you need to first create a blueprint, right? You need to have a model of understanding of where you put your bedroom, where you put your washroom, your kitchen, and everything is designed way before the pillar is even lifted or foundation is even made. So there's first creation, which is the actual blueprint. And so we want to think ourselves as, and again, this could be so many examples, planting a garden or going on a trip. We need to first create that blueprint and have the planning ready. So beginning with the end in mind is basically planning before we execute. So, but let's talk about ourselves. We're talking about ourselves, right? What is your planning, right? You just decided that you can change. You just decided that there is a paradigm shift we have. Now, let's write about it. Let's change your script. When we know we are sometimes influenced by the environment and social, settings, but then when we examine ourselves, let's write it down in a script of what we really want ourselves to be. Are we governing through the social mirrors, or are we governing through our own deep values and principles? Our responsibility, our compassion, our integrity, forgiveness. Are we valuing those more than what we value others? So we have what we call SMART goals. We want students to create those goals. But before that, we want them to create what we call a mission statement. A personal mission statement, meaning something that, what do you value first? So for example, I'm going to give you my mission statement quickly. My mission statement is more on circles. So my first circle, if you think about circles, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is my center of everything, Allah. After that, the other circle that comes afterward would be my parents, my children, my husband, right, my immediate family members. And then after that would be high school, my school, my extended family members, and so on and so forth, neighbors and all that. So when we have the mission statement, you feel that if moving forward, if there is conflict in these things, what should you do first? You look at which one is more important to you. If, for example, you are needing to be going somewhere, but it's time for prayers, it's a conflict. We need to know, obviously, our first thing is what's in the center, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and then something else. So create your mission statement that helps you to kind of guide as a compass that helps you. And because we know that our beginning with the end in mind is what really? Is akhirah, right? At the end of the day, our actions gives our consequences. So if you pick up a stick, one side of the stick, you eventually pick up the other side as well, right? So whatever you act, it will be an action, it will be a consequence. So for us as Muslims, our beginning with the end in mind is that we are looking at for Jannah. Jannah is our akhirah. So then I want to quickly move on to the put first things first. And before I do that, I want to ask a question to you. And I want you to reflect on the question yourself. The question is, what is one thing you could do that you're not doing already, that if you do on a regular basis, will make a tremendous positive impact in your personal life or getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So think about the question again. What is one thing, and this is for you, yourself, reflect on yourself. What is one thing that you are, what is one thing you could do that you're not already doing, that if you do on a regular basis, will have a tremendous positive impact in your life and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So with that, I wanted to talk about putting first things first. So let's back up a little bit and say that, okay, first is evaluating, having that self-awareness, being proactive and being aware of yourself. Then we talked about the beginning with the end in mind, the first creation, right? The blueprint, the mission statement, personal mission statement that you have for yourself that breaks away from your, or other social aspects that we might be, raised or influenced by. We break that away from it, create a value mission statement, right? Now it's time for the second creation, which is what? Which is to execute. Now let's walk the walk, like walk the talk, because it's time to examine, are you putting first things first? Meaning, when you really look at this entire quadrants, we talked about how the day, your week, your 24 hours are divided into these 4 quadrants. And those 4 quadrants represent what is so important to you and what is so urgent to you. And there are a few things that are not so important, but very urgent. There are some things that are not so urgent, but very important. So, there's a lot of things. But let's talk about some things that are not urgent, not important, which we should not be doing. We should not be doing those things. And that are time wasters, right? You're sliding your reels, Sometimes you get bogged down with Facebook or Instagram or whatever, social media. It's not important and not urgent, unless it's something that you need to do for a cause, and that's different. So then another quadrant is not important but urgent. Well, it seems urgent. If I'm presenting or I am working on my very important presentation, but all of a sudden I get a notification on my phone. You immediately turn and you look at your notification, before you know it, 1 hour passed. Because those are your distractions, your junk mail, or your things that seems like urgent, but it's not really. It's distraction. Then we have what we call quadrant 1, which is urgent but important, both urgent and important. So yes, it's absolutely important that you need to do this because it's urgent, it's important. But if you stick in this place for long, you will do what we call burning out. Because that's the place where it's putting out fires. You're not ready, all of a sudden something happened, you need to attend to that. Parents complain, or there's a fire, or whatever that needs to be attended to. So if you stick here, if you time is spent too much on this particular quadrant, you're going to burn out. So now the only thing that's left is quadrant 2, and that is area of proactivity. Meaning, that's the place where it's not going to be something that is going to be acted upon you, and you have to act upon it. Meaning, you are creating, you're planning, you are building relationship, you are preventing these fires. You are creating crisis management plan. You are creating the policies and procedures so that, God forbid, there is no lawsuit, right? You're basically planning, and that's the period, that's the area that you want to spend most of your time. And alhamdulillah, I hope that this is kind of helpful to you. And with that, I would like to remind you about the question that I asked you earlier. So the question that is, what one thing, if you were to look at that you're not already doing, because there's so many things going on, and you get stuck in those quadrant 3s and quadrant 1s, and you sometimes forget to do that quadrant 2, because it's not urgent. But you have to have that no to all the other quadrants in order to have the yes to that quadrant too. You have to say no to, scrolling. You have to say no to things that are distracting to you because you have a burning yes inside you because you are mission driven, right? You created that mission statement of what you want your life to be for the akhirah. And that is to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now I want to quickly pause. I don't know how much time I have, but I wanted to talk about, and I want to pause here because after these three, the proactive and beginning with the end in mind and put first things first, these are what we call private victories. Again, inside-out approach. First, you need to work on yourself before you work on anything else. It is what we call a maturity continuum. You are first dependent. You have no idea you are dependent on everything. But then after achieving these specific habits, if you've mastered these habits, you have a goal in mind and you have your time is spent in a quality way, then you are ready to work on the other areas of it. So again, yes, man arafa nafsa is what the sister said. So I'm going to move on. But yes, absolutely. For us, it's working on ourselves. We master ourselves. We master Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm going to quickly move on. The next habit, fourth habit, is what we call think, win, win. And think, win, win is what we really talked about. Are we working with consideration and courage? Meaning that when we're speaking to someone, when we're having let's just say a business deal with someone, or planning a family trip with your children, right? It's give and take. And you want to go somewhere, but your children wants to go somewhere else. It's the idea of having that conversation with the individual until you come to a win-win. Meaning, if you are able to be considerate of others' feelings, of really understanding what that other person is trying to gain, and then after that be able to now have the courage to explain what you really want, and to come to a third alternative, come to an understanding that will be think win-win. Now I'm going to move on. I'm not going to go to any other quadrant because you understand what think win-win is about. Alhamdulillah. Okay. And then next is seek first to understand and then to be understood, and it is also an example of one of the effectiveness is to, the key to our interpersonal skills, reading, writing, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And reading, writing, speaking are the areas that we really work in our schools, really work everywhere, understand and learn and be able to do. But sometimes we skip listening. Listening is a skill that sometimes we kind of neglect. But listening is so important. We need to really listen, not to prescribe, but to understand the person. Sometimes when we listen, we're listening to respond to the other person sometimes, don't we? Like, oh my God, what am I going to be saying while that person is talking? But are we really listening to that person? Because listening, what we call empathic listening, I'm sure you heard that all the time. Empathic listening is when you're listening with your heart, with your eyes, and with your ears. So heart means you're really feeling that person, that you are really understanding, and with your eyes, meaning you're looking at the nonverbal cues of that individual when they're talking to you. And then, of course, speaking. Yes?
So that's one of the things you need about 2 minutes to wrap up, inshallah.
2 minutes to wrap up. Oh, subhanAllah. Wow, okay. Okay. Alhamdulillah, and I could do that. Let's synergize is again another quadrant that is truly a manifestation of all the other habits. If you are master of those other habits, you're able to then synergize with the people and really learn from each other. There are factors that influence, and we talk to each other to synergize. For example, alhamdulillah, what's happening now, the Al-Qissa Foundation is an example of synergizing with all the schools, is that collaboration. And what we're doing here today is synergizing, right? Ms. Shaheen and I was planning to synergize. We came together as both schools, and be able to present. So the last one is called sharpening the saw, which means that we as a person, it's called a whole person paradigm, meaning first we need to work on ourselves, our body, our heart, mind, and spirit in order for all the other habits to work. If we don't take care of ourselves, then we'll be able to follow any of the habits. And again, there's a lot to talk about that, but I'm going to move on. And subhanAllah, I mean, there's a whole couple of slides that I want to talk about implementation, how we're implementing in our schools. And
we can give you another 5 minutes, but we're running into slot time, and then Q&A. But if you need 5 more minutes, we can definitely
okay, alhamdulillah.
Q&A.
Really, I'm about to wrap up. What I wanted to just say is that the Leader in Me program is again, I said, it's a transformational model that uses these habits to teach our students. And we believe that it's not just academic, it's the culture and the leadership. We believe that if the students have those leadership skills, they're able to, those leadership skills or habit that will influence the culture of the school, that will in turn influence the academics. So it's an indirect method of making sure that students are leaders. It's leader in all areas. It's a whole school transformational model. And we prepare our leaders by teaching these skills in 3 ways. One is direct instruction, integrated approach, and service learning. So biggest thing is the inside-out approach. Before we even go to the students, it's the teachers who should have be able to really understand and we do book reading, and we talk about ourselves first. How are we as teachers and administrators following these habits? And if they feel that if they feel the transformation, mashallah, I've trained many teachers, and mashallah, so the transformation is there. I've transformed myself, alhamdulillah, with some of the things that I've, kind of understand, and alhamdulillah. So students are learning these habits, and and in turn, we have what we call a mentorship program, and I know we talked about the student and teacher relationship. It's all about how do we teach those students. It's through those connections with those students. So we have a formal mentorship program where every teacher is mentored by students. We have about 20 students are mentored by a teacher who meets with those students on a weekly basis for about 10 to 15 minutes, and they talk about first their behavior or their social emotional needs, and if there's any barriers that are keeping them away from the academics. They develop goals, and they try to accomplish the goals. They are held accountable every week in order for them to move forward, and that helps the students to develop that growth mindset, that self-advocacy, and eventual self-direction skills. Culture is, again, as I said, it's for example, if you take a premier seed and plant it in a toxic soil, you think it's going to grow? Not quite, right? So we want to make sure that our culture is also important. We want to make sure that the language is that they are receiving with the students, where empathy is there, where love and affection is there, and that will help them. All the students, inshallah, have our leadership roles in our school. And they're every student that walk in our school, every single one of them have a leadership role. Meaning they're either public speakers, they're lunchroom helpers, they're, anything that they're doing, they're, being able to do what they feel. They get interviewed, they make their own choice of what they want to be as leaders, and they are, mashallah, executing that leadership in school. So they feel what we call the self-responsibility, right? They feel self-directed. Sense of belonging is there for our students, alhamdulillah. And finally, academics, and again, with doing all that, they develop what we call academic tenacity and the relevance of school, because they feel that's relevant. When they're there, they belong there. And mashallah, we have many success stories. Alhamdulillah, I have shared a lot of things in the digital shared resource. So if you're interested, I'm more than welcome to provide that with you guys.
And again, I miss Ms. Shaheen, she's not here, but I know this Al-Hadi school is also starting to have that transformative approach as well. And I know my phone is not here, but the two Maulanas that are there, they're transforming the school, alhamdulillah, and based on the 7 habits of effective muttaqi, and that's wonderful what they're doing. So it's all about integration, subhanallah. So if any more questions, I would love to take it. If not, thank you so much for your time and listening.